everybody, welcome to our webinar. So as always, it's going to be a live webinar, and it's one of those where I'm going to be talking about your work. We're going to be doing some judging, but at the same time, I'm going to try to give you some advice what I think could make your image a little bit better. Obviously, it's going to be my subjective opinion, so I'm going to try to also be as technical as possible so everybody actually gets something out of it. This kind of series is what proposed by our community, and we're slowly gathering a little bit bigger audience. So I would like to thank you all, but also at the same time like and subscribe, right guys? This is really going to help us, so sorry for taking this much time. Let's get started. So a lot of you guys were asked by us to send your work in, and we had quite a lot of them, and not all images are going to be shown due to the fact that some of you sent them like 5 minutes ago, so I'm just not going to be able to prepare the whole link, but it's really nice to have you. And most importantly, I'm going to try to, at the same time, while talking about your images, I'm going to try to compare them to our students' images if that's possible, but I believe it's going to be best to just give you all a little bit of an introduction to today's works. And we're going to start very strong with something created by Benjamin. So here we can see that there's obviously a car, but as a visual on its own, it depends what we wanted to show. If this would be a magazine shot, and you know that a lot of times you're going to have to leave a little bit of space for some text, so this would be really amazing. But I'm guessing this is an architectural visualization, so we are going to be focusing mostly on that aspect. So there's not a lot of architecture in here, so focusing on it would be a good idea. Car is a great example of extra in your shot, but if this is architectural shot, me as your potential client, I would definitely prefer to hide the car a little bit more, although it's really high quality, so definitely worth showing. Okay, so I'm a graphic designer. I have a problem with importing small details from Illustrator to Max. Not welding good. It doesn't work with extrude or shell. Any solutions, please? So it all depends on how you created the elements, because Illustrator and any other program is not going to be designed to work with 3ds Max really well. I would recommend you to try to do a little bit of a larger loop where you first try to put your image into you're first going to try to put your image into different software, for example AutoCAD, and from there you're going to be able to probably take it with higher degree of accuracy to 3ds Max. I once did it, but 3ds Max sent to AutoCAD first and then to the 3ds Max. Oh, David, that's really what I wanted to say. So hello from Argentina. Hello, David. Hello. Imad, David, Josie, Oliver, Booker, Barbara, and everybody else. Krishna, nice to see you again. This image, let's keep on talking about it. From technical standpoint, it's definitely one of those images where you're just going to be whoa. Wait a second. So we're going to actually open the image differently because the flipbook I've prepared is not really up for the task, but we're going to try to make it more entertaining that way. So you do have a little bit of a problem with noise, excessive noise, especially in refracted areas. So spending a little bit of more time on this element would be a good idea, because obviously if we're going to be delivering, we want to deliver it on the best note. At the same time, please notice that the elements in here are on the edge or overburning. Actually, your RGB values compared to the sky, it's a bright day, summer day, where we actually have clouds that are darker than your building. That's pretty much impossible. So this is something that I would definitely try to balance out, because without it, your image, although that does look perfect, it has everything a good visualization should have, There are technical elements that we should really think about. First of all, if this is architectural shot, car must go somewhere else. Then, if we're, let's say, trying to show our architecture, you're definitely supposed to be focusing on that. I know that's probably one of the many shots from a series, but at the same time, if it is, you definitely need to tackle the overburned areas, because without it, you're not going to get the right result. So this would be my advice. Also, the shrugs around here kind of lack a little bit of detail that you don't typically grow grass beneath it, but that's such a small detail that I'm actually being very picky with it. So definitely great job, and congratulations. So this is a very, very powerful work. So Benanhara Argvis. So this was by them. So Jello from Morocco, mama, okay. Another webinar, and I'm here. Nice to see you again. Nice to see you, Amal. Cool that you made it. So welcome, and I hope that we're going to also see your work on our list. Hello from Morocco, mama, again. Hello, Mike. I hope you are doing good. Yes, Asim, I'm really great. Thank you. Hi sir, last class I didn't come, felt sick. Oh, that's a pity. I hope that now you're well, since you're here. So really amazing. So now we're going to be talking about a different image. Unfortunately, I'm really sorry, but I cannot read your name. I'm just too dumb for that. So please excuse me for this, but it is definitely, well, I just would like to be able to read those letters, although it's impossible for me at the moment. Let's try Google Translate for. No, that's not going to be a good idea, probably. Oh, anyway, let's talk about your Argvis work and what is it good for. Do we want to say it's nice? Is it professional? So obviously it is a professional shot done by a studio for a client that's going to have some kind of beauty salon, and in that case we can also think about the possible marketing possibilities with this shot, whether it's going to be useful or not. So from my standpoint, first thing that I would really focus on is the horizon line. It's actually added perfectly okay, because our building goes, our horizon line is pretty much on this level, so we don't need to correct anything. I would still put the buildings slightly higher, so they would look a little bit more interesting, and we would have more background, so that would be a little bit let's say a refined image. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to be necessary, due to the fact that at the moment it's just big enough, and that's going to be something to always think about. Now, what we have here is the makeover. There's a lot of repetition in here, and some of the cosmetics are just pretty much the same. So it's not a big deal for us, but whenever I would be working for a client, I would definitely try to randomize all of those elements, at least to change the hue on each consecutive element. So it's going to be slightly different, still retaining the same idea behind it, but having a little bit of randomization, different colors, more variety is going to be really a good idea. From technical standpoint, the model is perfect. There's no problem with it. And that's really the problem, because everything is so clean and so perfect that at this point, I would expect some kind of concrete or some kind of cracks, some kind of elements on the ceiling that would make it look more realistic. Also, you can see that here we don't even have any background. The background that you've added for the main window just cuts, and this is the repetition of your main image, or it's a very poorly added wall. Regardless, whatever that is, it's not really communicating well with our needs. I have to really give you a big props for actually adding a little bit of wobbliness to your floor, but it should also have a little bit more to it. How can I send it? Onis, unfortunately, we do not accept any more images at the moment, because our, let's say, link was posted on our YouTube, on our Instagram, and all of our social media. So at this moment, we're only talking about stuff that was sent by our viewers. So Next time, please be on a lookout. We're going to be doing exactly the same review in a month. So if you want to, you can probably try your luck next time. I would strongly recommend you to join us. Which is harder to learn, 3ds Max or SolidWorks? Depends on what you want to do with both. If you want to do visuals in SolidWorks, you're probably going to find it harder. But if you want to do, CAD work, it's definitely going to be better than 3ds Max. So those are entirely different purpose soft programs. So and probably 3ds Max is better for archviz, for creativity, and definitely for any means of, let's say, popular media. When it comes to CAD work, mostly it's still going to be SolidWorks because obviously it is designed to work that way. So, hi, I want to know what how to switch off the HDRI image for the lighting in 3ds Max. So if you want to turn off an HDRI, there's a very easy way to do it. And the easiest way would be really to if you want to retain your lighting, you want to use the direct visibility and refraction overrides depending on your needs. So likely you're just going to be using direct visibility override. If you're using Corona, there's a cool thing or a probably odd thing that happened because whoa, come on, not that big. Okay, now there's a very cool thing that happened because previously direct visibility override was enough for us to override what was going on in thin glass. So right now thin glass is still calculated as refraction. So if you're going to be using that, you definitely want to put it in both slots. And since you're at it, you probably want to also override the reflection, but that's probably going to be up to you to test out. Let's move on to the next image. So makeover to 22, I must say that this is a very nice image. Definitely it lacks bloom and glare, a little bit of wear and tear, and it has a lot of good elements in it. And so I would definitely say that this is done by a professional studio, for a professional studio, by a professional. So definitely good work. My last thing that I would like to also mention is that probably you should be a little bit more careful with your windows because this window appears to be slightly overstepping on the on your frames. It's not something that we're going to consciously see, but our brains are going to pick up as a mistake. So definitely something to think about. So here we got live with limits. So live undefined. So this is an image created by Gitesh, and there's a reason why I've decided to add it in, because this time we can see that the image is actually not that bad. It's an artsy shot created for some kind of exhibition, and you definitely want to think about it this way. But since it is exhibition and you're adding some kind of a woman, this woman should be probably here as a prompt, or let's say as a prop that would only add a little bit of her beauty to the image. Right now she's obscuring a part of your main design, so it's basically taking away from what we want to learn about, and that would be the main logo of that company. So definitely something to think about. Next, from technical standpoint, you have a lot of problems with a lot of burnouts. So please make sure to balance your lighting a little bit better. Each part of her face is overburned either by white color, by yellow, or by pink. This is not a contrast. This is just you not balancing enough the lighting. If you're using Corona, and from what I can see, I cannot see if you are. If you would be using Corona Renderer, an ACOT would take care of this immediately, and you would have a little bit easier time. Also, a bit stronger bloom and glare is going to help you. A lot of times when dealing with images like this, you also want to think in the same terms as you would as you think about, let's say, a regular or traditional drawing. Everything in your shot is pretty much just 2D flat right here. So what I'm talking about is that everything you've added is essentially on a one plane. There's no depth because, yeah, maybe this suggests that there is some, but there's a black hole behind our object and we don't even see where we are. So yes, again, it's probably some kind of exhibition, but if it is, make sure to give us a bit more, a little bit more context so we understand where we are, what we're doing, and definitely work more on the overburns. Hello Art Studio, nice to see you. It lacks bloom. Yeah, it does. It does lack bloom a little bit. Christian just overrides the reflection. Okay, let's see what we have next. So this is an image created by somebody very technical. So this is Clara, and Clara has created this image in 3ds Max plus Corona, and we can immediately spot a few mistakes. Okay, so first of all, the design is quite cool, but I like this kind of fresh, modern, minimalistic approach. It's almost a little bit bokeh, but it obviously lacks some kind of macram on a wall. But what we can see and really be angry about if you are the client, what I would really what I would dislike about this image is the displacement you've added. What we have here is a very common problem with normal maps. So you're probably getting the prompt from 3ds Max, hey, your normal maps are flipped or they need a little bit more gamma. And in that case, if you do not fix this, you're going to run into this issue where you're going to have all of those stripes. This can also be done or created by badly optimized displacement. So in this case, you can see that this area is perfect. It also has the same lines, but they're more subtle. So we can also assume that maybe it's not exactly the smoothing groups, but actually lighting at fault. So you're using sun. So sun is eliminated from that because definitely sun works the way it should. And at this point, it's either going to be displacement, your smoothing groups, or it's a problem with your normals. So definitely something to fix. The background looks cool, but the frames of the window go over the wall. I know that this is being picky and this is a normal mistake that humans can make, but come on, this is something you just do not, you cannot miss it. And this is just you not looking back at your image to fix it, because all of that could be done in 15 seconds in 15 seconds in Photoshop. So definitely just a little bit lazy work at this point. But now this is one of those things that a lot of people have a problem with. So here you can see that your curtain goes over your, let's say, starting point, and just basically blends into your wall. There's a quick solution to this problem, and I'm going to show it to you in 3ds Max real quick. So let's just create some kind of pseudo curtain that's going to also go inside of some kind of crack. I know that a lot of times you're going to probably have you're going to have a limited time frame, and you're not going to be able to do anything really good about your image. I know that I went through it many times. So now let's go to optimize spline. Okay, so now it's optimized, no, not optimized, normalize. We want to normalize the spline. Whenever you use a free drawing tool in 3ds Max, you want to normalize the spline after. Why do we want to do it? Because without it, you can see how many points I have, and this is going to be just excessive. But we can just go ahead and either change my knot count and just add a few knots if we want to. Be very naughty. And now, since it looks better, I'm going to just extrude it, and this is now going to be my pseudo curtain. It's way easier to create it this way and faster if we're going to just work with some kind of very simplistic model, and this is a curtain far in the back. So let's say that this is the curtain that we wanted to work with, and you are facing the same issue that that a lot of us really run into a lot. So let's have a wall. because that's a wall. Now we're going to have some kind of ceiling. So let's add this here. And first of all, check if your curtain is done like mine. So you can see that this is a very common problem. Models are going to come at different angles and shapes. So you want to probably first check if you can rotate it into submission. But if it doesn't help and it still overrides a little bit, your solution is very simple. What you do is go to convert your object to a little poly or any other solution, add a few points here and there. So probably we're going to need quite a lot of them at the top. And this is the whole trick. You select the top part of your curtain, go for 3x3 or 4x4 modifier. And before that, you want to also be smarter and reset the X form since I rotated my object. Now convert this object to a editable poly yet again, and we're quickly going to add some kind of additional small detail with 4x4 modifier. So 4x4, and at this point I'm just going to stretch the part that I don't want here, and the more objects I'm going to select, the easier the transition is going to be. So I can control the full transition and it doesn't have to be as aggressive. Also, if I'm going to take a few steps and actually select a bigger chunk of my object, I can just go ahead and add the detail, or let's say this transition, in a very delicate manner. So I should have actually selected this part as well, so it's going to cover the whole thing. So now we can actually see that the transition happens very naturally and we don't need to worry about it because it's just a curtain. But if it's going to go over your ceiling and it's going to pretty much just obscure half of your scene, it's probably not going to look good. And the transition is very subtle. It doesn't need additional changes. It's just a 4x4 modifier. Simplest and easiest way of doing it. Sometimes you just can't go for simple scaling like this because then your curtain is going to be just too flat. And to retain a little bit of the detail and still have the fluffiness, but not a problem at the top, this would be my suggested solution for you. Are there home-based architectural 3D rendering jobs in the States? I hope I can find one soon. I would be a perfect job for me in this case. So onesies. If it comes to United States, I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. I have little to no experience with that market when it comes to finding a job. I did do some commissions from clients from America. Shout out to you, Shabanon. But at the same time, I would like to make it super clear that American business and American, let's say, workforce is totally different to the one that I know, European. But it's not that different to a point where 3D visuals aren't going to be needed. They are. And one thing that is really emphasized in America when it comes to 3D visuals is flexibility. They have a lot of ideas, a lot of changes, and they really respect the fact that you can give some advice, some kind of, let's say, input. Because when it comes to really working with a client for doing visuals, there are two different let's say levels. You're either going to be just doing the visuals and following what the designer or client wants you to do, or you're going to do that plus suggest solutions. The second option is the premium option. So you probably want to be a little bit more let's say educated on the topic of the of your own mastery, because that way you're actually going to be people are going to actually think about you in a better terms. So okay, I just sent the form. I will it be reviewed next stream or this stream? Thanks. Talha, if you have sent something right now, I can store it for the next one, but it's going to be in a month. So I would actually try to use this 1 month to create even more work and send it to us. That's going to be a better idea. I use 3ds Max all the time, but I don't know what Viz is, except for a left comic. Probably you don't want to go into that topic too deep before we actually get into some trouble. Mike, how to place curtain on a irregular curved shape. Asim, thank you for that question. I'm going to go back toward the images and the whole topic of our today's webinar in a second, but first let's just add an irregular curve, and there are two things that you have to remember. First of all, your curtain is always going to be limited by, well, you. So we probably want to add something like array modifier at the right angle. So for example, y-axis, so it's going to be longer. I know it's not perfect, but it is going to be good enough for us to allow our object to follow. Now, when we have the array, we can go for path deform. And in path deform, we click on the object, and this way the object or our curtain is going to be following the curve. In some cases, depending on your pivot position, you're going to maybe have to add a rotation, so 270 in my case, 270, and we can now play a little bit with our percent and just move it along as much as we want. Okay, but Mike, this isn't what I asked you. I need to stretch it out. And yeah, I've got you. Now, we can also try to add a few more items here. So by increasing the amount of, let's say, the elements that I'm going to be using, I'm going to get a better result. So long story short, this is how we can do it. And this is the easiest way of placing curtains on a curvy surface, because if you're going to be bending all of that, it's going to be, well, it's going to take a while. So 3D model, but I am a slow modeler. Takes ages to build things. So if you want to build 3D models, it all depends on what you want to be working with. Considering your previous post, I'm going to guess you're into human autonomy. So you probably want to pick up something like Mudbox, ZBrush, or even Blender, because that software also has a good let's say sculpting as built in. Compared to ZBrush or the Mudbox, I think Blender is a little bit behind on that. In that regard, but it's not far off. It's really going to be enough to get you started, and once you get a little bit paced, you probably will be moving on to something more advanced. So let's move on. So we've spotted a few mistakes here and there. Those are just let's say lazy mistakes that we typically all do. I do them all the time, so that's not a problem. But here we have a technical problem, which is actually a badly placed or used normal map, which is something that technically I wouldn't be accepting. So next we have a very unique shot, and Eduardo has sent it just a few days ago. And Eduardo, the image is really cool, but I really do not get the reason why you would be rendering this in 4K, because this is quality high enough for us to zoom in 500 if not 800%, and it still retains quality. I mean, it's cool to have something like this in your portfolio, but nobody's going to see it. So once we have this kind of resolution, you probably want to go into more detail. There's a reason why people do not render in highest resolution possible, because they don't want people to zoom in on everything. I mean, they still will. Lovely reflections, by the way, but you can see that there are also technical problems. The spline that you've created as a starter point had the iterations or your wait a second, how's it called? Now I forgot the word. A line, and now what's that word? Interpolation. So you left your interpolation set to 6, and that meant that your object is going to be limited by that number. And by the result of that is that we have a few steps: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So probably actually a little bit higher number, but still it's too low for this quality. The lamp doesn't have the problem, so it's a little bit more turbo smooth, but at the same time it didn't work enough with the balancing of your lighting. You can see that anti-aliasing is actually kicking in. So I'm guessing that this is not a Corona light material, but Corona light object. So this also requires you to start using a little bit of luminant glare to hide those imperfections, because in some cases this is going to be smoothed out really nicely by the luminant glare, and you have to have a little bit of it. You don't have to add a lot, just some. Roundness of the edges, and also your texture is a little bit let's say repeating, but then it breaks. So mapping is another issue here. So very good, very nice image. Thank you for sending it in. Good solution for this is definitely going to be working with Corona Light material, also bloom and glare, then making sure to not add too little of your, let's say, iterations on the shapes that you're creating. Then make sure to add chamfers or some kind of additional roundness for your tiles, because those look laser cut and we don't like that. Same goes for the walls. For this resolution, you definitely need to add a little bit of more detail. Color wise, design wise, it's good, but then we've got this repetitive texture outside, which kind of blows the effect. So definitely something I would try to think about when dealing with your images. So definitely good job. Let's see what else we have on our list. So I'm going to go through probably just a few of your works so if anybody feels like they were left out, sorry, I'm only a human, so we're trying to go through all of the images that we found interesting for you as the audience, but at the same time, I'm going to try to give a shout out to as many of you as I can. So this is designer Narinder. So now, I hope that you're in our audience. So what we have here is a very nice set. I absolutely love those tiles, but go easier on your noise. Also add one more level of iterations, because not a lot of people know that, but in noise, especially if you set it to fractal, you're going to be able to add a special extra level. Also, using regular noise is the best thing you can do. But if you're going to add the higher, or let's say too high, values when it comes to bump or any other displacement like option, you're actually going to run into some issues. So you can see here that the map is very soft, but in turbulence we can add more levels. In fractal we can add more levels. So in regular we're limited by that, and that is going to also mean that sometimes we're going to run into some issues. But going back to your image once again, what's a bigger offender for me is that most of your tiles have exactly the same bump. I know it's just a product, so it's okay, but since you emphasize it that much, try to add some randomization. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about your background, because, or, well, you kind of get it. The background in your shot is just a little bit squished. It's not placed correctly. And the biggest problem really, because I can live with the squished image, is that the pixel density is just so different that it immediately grabs our attentions. Then it's your mapping. There's a little bit of that problem where some textures are stretched, some of them aren't even mapped, and then we've got a lot of oversaturation. So mostly I would be working on your mapping because there's a lot to really unpack here. Then the shot, although we have a very nice window next to us, I don't think we have a big window behind us because the reflections do not suggest that. So if that's the case, why would we be adding so much ambience in front of our kitchen, and why is the ambience coming from the left side as well? Because if we look at any cylindrical object in this scene, it is very clear to see for us that this is the reflection of the main window. So this is the right one, and this is pretty much it. So most of the light is coming from this angle, right? So we're pretty much having a lot of light coming from that scope. Okay, so if the light is coming from that scope, we do not expect it here, as no object in the scene suggests that we're going to have it. So long story short, definitely something to think about. More contrast, less ambience, and emphasize the shadows a little bit more, because without it, you're not going to get into the right, let's say, photographic zone. One mistake is that you can't see the camera in the mirror, lol. Yeah, okay, so I use Mudbox, okay. A few characters in Mudbox. I hate ZBrush. Yeah, ZBrush is a little bit upside down, but it's really efficient when you actually master it a little bit. So I got here late. Are you using cloth modifier? We can use cloth modifier. That's a good thing to do because, for example, if we take this and re-simulate it on some to some level, it's going to look marvelous. But at this point, for objects that are going to be further in the background, I do not use it. I just create curtains this way because it's faster, easier, and I don't have to browse through my libraries. So main mistakes, definitely background, no wobbliness on reflections, too strong, too emphasized bump that repeats, and then it's the mapping where it's lacking, or just some of the textures do transition from one element to another. We needlessly have this element or this other room in our shot. It's not bringing anything to really emphasize any detail in the shot. So cropping the image would be actually a better idea because now we know what we're talking about. And here we just kind of can guess that that's a part of living room, or maybe not. That's something to really think about. Okay, so this is another very cool interior, but it has a big problem in it. So Rana, thank you for sending it in. Let's see what we have here. So the biggest problem is I'm not going to be talking about the design because that's not something I am, let's say, equipped to judge. I'm talking about the burnouts. So definitely too much light in those areas that focus so much attention that we actually outshined the sun. And this also puts a lot of emphasis on very low quality textures. Think about it as making salad. If you're going to use bad quality veggies to make your salad, you're really not going to enjoy it. But if you're going to use good quality, good resolution textures, you're actually going to get a better result. So in here you can see all of those very bad looking veins and also pixels, but that's mostly because of the amount of bump you're using. If you would go easier on the bump, this wouldn't really be that noticeable. So you're overusing the bump and that's the result. Next is that wall on the right and wall on the left, they do have different mappings. So what it means is that we have different scale here. So that's another thing to think about. As for the bed, it's fine. There's nothing to talk about it because it's a downloaded model, but you could add a little bit of fabric on it. So there's a texture here and there. Problem that I would be really worried about is that you're really oversaturating your elements to a point that our texture is invoking some kind of green blue colors because it's so oversaturated that it just cannot go any further, so it comes up with some kind of weird coloring. Take your texture to Photoshop and spend a few seconds to actually make it good and red instead of doing whatever you did here. And this oversaturation is really going to come back to bite you. Then we've got overabundance and lack of blue and glare. So you have to balance out all of your light, possibly using light mix or any other means to make your work a little bit more interesting. A lot of times when dealing with, oh, this is not really what I wanted to show you. A lot of times when dealing with images, you will have to think about your work in slightly different terms. So allow me to render this for 5 seconds, and we're going to just talk about what I meant. So once you create your lighting, you know that lighting is going to be essential, but you never want to allow one very important thing. You never want to allow your lamps, LEDs, to outshine the sun. If you're going to turn on the LEDs, try to lower the amount of sun you're using, because then you're going to run into some issues if you're going to leave it that way. Let's wait for it to render for 3 or 4 more seconds so the denoising kicks in. Okay, that's enough. Now we're going to stop this, and we can see that this image is more or less very blurry. So a lot of times when we have extra lamps, you have to either lower the amount of exposure your HDRI or main light source has. So key light in this case is going to be changed to something different. So once we have this turned off, or even lowered or turned off, it's going to just allow us to emphasize the lights that we want to work with a little bit more. And then we've got our key light. So this is the light that is most important for us. We want to always make sure that it's not overburning elements, because if we're going to go to a point where it's actually going to give us this, that's really bad. So you want to go for subtle levels where your light is going to still allow us to see some details, and when it does, that's when you want to reintroduce your environment and just add enough so it's going to allow you to see the rest. So for a shot like yours, and especially since it's a bedroom, you do not allow as much light to be all over the place. So is it about to build a forest for a first time in Max? Trying out the forest pack, hope it ends up looking realistic. Have to build a bridge first. Oh, that's really like your ideas. That being creative is exactly the best path along your journey with 3ds Max. So yeah, go for it. It's a beautiful software when it comes to being creative. The bed looks like it was done from Marvelous Designer. I would say yes, it's possible, because the wrinkles do look like a typical Marvelous Designer, but they could also be done in any other software, even in 3ds Max. So next we've got this bathroom by Ahmed. So in this case, I'm going to just be absolutely straightforward. It's a very nice looking professional level work, but there are some mistakes. Remember, art is never finished, it is only abandoned. And you decided to abandon it with this kind of lighting on the top. Absolutely everything else is high quality, and this is a typical shot that a lot of people would be printing in their magazines with some kind of build your bathroom right now, or just any other text around here. But as you can see, the light is typical for default settings in Corona. It's not that they're bad, but actually you could work on it a little bit more. So always make sure that your light sources are smaller and create a little bit more light instead of leaving this kind of stars, because they do not look very attractive and they kind of look too 3D. When it comes to the rest of the elements, it's actually a very cool shot. Probably I would pick a different 3 and well, work on that, but honestly this is a very nice work, so congratulations. And next we've got a super cool image created by Illy Carrie Salter Immobilen. Sorry for being that bad at reading. Yeah, it's one of those days. So this is a clearly high quality image that was created by professional studio, and this is a hands down level that people need to deliver. But at the same time, I would like to point out a few mistakes or problems that we have to face, and in newer Corona, this problem is going to be non-existent at this moment, especially when it comes to bricks. So what am I talking about? First of all, you've got a lot of repetition here. So this pattern just goes into repetition every 5 bricks. So this is definitely something that on a larger scale is going to look like noise, and we don't want that. So our brains are hardwired to pick up the patterns, and I don't think it's going to be a good idea to leave those patterns in the way you did. So please make sure to use more procedural approach when it comes to your bricks. Next is the background. Well, it looks good, but it doesn't suggest that the background should be ending the way it does. So here, if we trace the line, you're going to notice that the horizon line is actually way higher than your tree line. So those are just shrugs that are lower. So if you want this to look natural, you want to build a little bit higher, because then it's going to actually feel more lifelike. And in the end, we've got a problem with the background because it's just missing. So the sky is perfect, everything is cool, but the depth is missing. Then the bricks do have a lot of repetition. Other than that, I wouldn't be really... I would say that this is something you can clearly deliver to your client. And since you are using textures as your bricks, please make sure to consider using more procedural approach, especially now since Corona 11 has this super cool tile map. This is going to be a godsend feature for you. Okay, so congratulations. This is a super cool image. Now let's continue going through our submissions. So, okay. another cool submission. This one is absolutely mind-blowing. So base post, Vin, and it's created by Kefir. So hope that you are online, and if you are, let me know. So what we have here is another super cool example of, first of all, utilizing a lot of versatile trees, a lot of cool plants. So this wasn't done in 5 minutes, and I can really see that you poured a lot of your soul into it. But now we're going to rag on it. So first of all, you need to add the variety and the versatility into the grass itself. It's just that right now we do have some kind of plant number 1, plant number 2, 3, yeah, it's just 3 plants. Just not enough for a meadow like this. You should have let's say plants sticking here, some kind of shrub, some kind of small element, mole in here, then a little bit of dead grass patch. There's a lot of that missing, and right now this is the biggest problem in your shot because that part looks the most CGI. Then if we look at this point, let's say this crop actually, what strikes me is that you are using a very narrow lens. So typically we would expect a little bit of depth of field in this case. I absolutely have to tell you that adding this amount of fog, perfect. But why are we introducing this tree here? It's identical and it repeats. So repetition is a real problem in your case, definitely, because this tree, and that tree are the same model. It's not a problem, but you have to randomize the rotation a little bit more because you can see that this triangle is reappearing all the time, and this isn't really the biggest problem again, but it is going to be somewhat forming patterns. So please make sure to use a little bit bigger a little bit bigger number of different trees so they don't look as identical. Can you use floor generator on the bricks with multi-texture? Yes, but that's going to be a little bit of a problem because once, if you need to change something with floor generator, although it is going to be super friendly for any and flexible, first of all, what you're going to be forced to do is change multiple floor generators on all surfaces. So that's going to take you ages. Yes, you can use instancing when it comes to the modifier, but then you're going to have to really figure out the right way of creating the objects and their pivots. So if we're going to get into that, you're probably going to have to also think about the mapping. So that's going to be problem number 3. And if you want to change something about the bricks, I know bricks are typically going to be identical, but let's say that your client decided that they want a different type of bricks. Different shape, different size, different whatever. You're going to be absolutely screwed because you already spent an hour setting up the floor generator. Yes, now it's flexible, so you can change it, but it's going to be prone to crash and it's going to slow down your computer by a lot. So using procedural maps and good mapping for bricks, especially if you're going to be viewing that way to go about it. Sometimes I look real if I don't use a depth of field, as sometimes the background can be slightly out of focus. So you can focus on the main object in the scene. That's exactly it. The time prompt is good. Yes, they are good. Okay, so what do you guys think about this image? What else should we be focused on? I kind of like the fact that we have so many different shades and colors of the trees, but then why not more? I mean, we don't need the trees to be exactly one shade, but different. Then please make sure to refer to our 3 video with all of the tricks that I showed there. You would not get into the issue that I just pointed out with the repetition. So make sure to test it out, and that's going to be super helpful. This is like a webinar 5 or 6 webinars ago about webinar about the trees. And then why didn't you add any glass into your windows? That's a huge mistake, and for that reason I'm really glad that you've sent it, but there's so many elements that you should just work on that this is not a portfolio piece yet. You can make it better, and I promise you it is going to look fantastic if you fix those issues. So definitely those issues are your number 1 priority. then it's going to be areas like this where you add just a black hole in for no reason into your shot. Avoid it, because that's just as bad as burning out your shot. You want to have a little bit of detail here, even more than that, because if you just leave black spots, it's a waste of pixels. So you're not going to actually be able to impress your viewers with that. Next, we've got a very nice shot, and this shot is one of those cute final rendering kitchen for interview and para lava. So this is a very cool thing, because I wanted to talk about this because it's for the interview. So whenever you will be looking for a job in any kind of industry, your client or potential employer is going to try to test you in a way that they will be trying to probably ask you to do something extra, because, well, show me what you got. Or I want to test if that portfolio is really yours. Show me something extra. So this is a very cool thing, because you can see here that this design is either created by somebody who doesn't necessarily know a lot about design, or it's just somebody testing the employee. So here, for example, we can see that we've got those bar stools, and there's a little bit of a leg space in here, so we can actually put those next to this counter. But here we've got the shelves, and then there's another chair. That's just illogical to add, so that's a problem. I don't know who's making so much soup at this hour, but probably we should go a little bit we should be a little bit more subtle when it comes to our props. Also, why are you adding this kind of repetition? It's just going to take away from your realism. And then we've got the burnouts, super strong reflection and no background at all, and repetition of textures. So this all of those elements are very cool. And one thing that is done correctly, and I actually like it a lot, is that everything is in scale, and it actually makes sense, let's say, from logical standpoint. From, let's say, a utility standpoint, whether it is easy to use this counter or just work at it, I would say that me being a little bit of a dwarf, I would have a bit of a problem here. And yeah, this is my second hand. I'm just really bad at drawing with my mouse. So this would be probably problematic. All of the spheres do not have any kind of, let's say, noise on them. Those are just squished spheres, and some of them are floating in the air for no reason. So if, to be honest, it's a nice shot. I would say that there's a lot of things that you seem to know about 3ds Max, but you still need to work on it a little bit more. Could you please explain the procedural mapping? Is it special textures? Thank you for that question, FNA Design. So procedural maps are, let's say, the category of maps that you have already built in 3ds Max. So procedural mapping means that if there's some kind of algorithm that is going to allow you to, let's say, add mapping to an object, either by following the UVW space of your object, or just by generating it based on real world, or let's say 3D world scale. So for example, if I'm going to put this material override, set it to instance, and now I'm going to show you a very nice example of procedural mapping. This is called Advanced Wood, and it's part of 3ds Max. If we plug in the diffuse to base color, roughness to roughness, and our bump, which is unnecessary at this point, what I'm going to be able to achieve is something spectacular, because this is my override material. So I'm just going to render this out real quick so everybody can see what we're talking about. This instantly added very nice wooden patterns to my objects. And what's really cool about this, and we cannot really see it on this scale. I'm actually going to update this image to make this. Okay, I kind of like what I just did, but what I wanted to show you is this gingerbread house, and render this one out with the override without really going through any kind of list of exclusions. So actually we're going to just include those, and that's going to be easier for me. Okay, let's go for 5. Okay, so now what you can see is from a gingerbread house, I turned it into wooden house, and due to the fact that this texture or this map is procedural, it creates all of the detail on its own, and it's just basically a free way of sculpting your objects. And you can see that wherever I zoom in and wherever I go, this is super high quality. Okay, maybe not that super quality. Okay, I take it back. It's not that super quality, but still, it allowed me to zoom in on this object quite a lot, still retaining a lot of detail. I should probably top up the resolution. So procedural maps are the maps that allow you to create objects without real procedural maps are the maps that have some kind of algorithm and some kind of, let's say, behavior designed by algorithms. So you can see that this is another procedural map where we have all of those elements. Mixing and matching them together will allow you to get limitless, let's say, those maps have limitless possibilities as long as you do not overuse the detail that they allow you to work with. And yes, that's really going to be super cool to work with, so definitely something to think about. I hope that this wasn't all over the place. Procedural maps are the algorithmic maps that you can add to your shaders. So let's continue going through our beautiful work. So definitely that was something super cool. Okay, that image is Javier Alvarez. Now here we can see that this image is potentially one of those that you want to send on a contest, because here we do have a lot of good stuff to begin with. And I love the fact that this building has a lot of detail, especially on the front facade. But then we kind of get a little bit lower quality when it comes to reflections. The model's quality, you can see that it's cut in unevenly, and then it's the background. Although the foreground is fantastic, it's really rich with textures, with different variety of objects, and also different plants and colors. That's a huge thing. But then we get into the depth. You can see that it cuts suddenly, and we kind of have a little bit of volumetric, but it doesn't suggest it on the sky. So it's definitely going to be one of those images where you want to emphasize the depth a little bit more. Adding a little bit of depth of field is not going to do a lot, but it would make this part a little bit out of focus. This would be in full focus, and then there would be just the smallest amount of out of focus elements in the end. Also, adding fake noise would be actually the right way to go about it. The quality of the texture of the object on the back is just wrong. I can see that this was supposed to be a sunset or a sunrise, and this all is supposed to be all fun and orange and look cool. But where's the orange all over the place on the building and all the rest? I think that this is definitely one of the highlights of this upload, but I would probably work on it a little bit more, especially on the quality, given the quality of the background. Very nice work, and to fix it, definitely work more on the depth feeling, because right now it's just lacking. So definitely something to think about a little bit more. Okay, so what else? Oh, this is a cool image. So hush, and let's see what we have in here. So definitely zooming in here is just going to be a piece of cake. I'm not going to talk about this image a lot, but we have a little bit of a problem with repetition of texture. So please make sure to correct that. This is just a badly textured element. Displacement is really unnecessary on this mouse pad. It's just excessive. Then we've got a lot of objects that are downloaded and very cool composition. So definitely quality is something that you went for. We can see that we've got not noise, but detail on all of those elements. And that's cool. But then we lack detail on all of the props, and they just slowly go on a slope. Whatever you look at, it kind of lacks some kind of reflection, some kind of extra life. Then there's this displacement. Very nice, very cute image. I would say that portfolio wise, I would probably definitely focus on adding more depth of field in this shot to make it more dramatic. because without it, it's just not going to work the way you intended it. Okay, another work. This one was created by Stefan. So, no, this is not Stefan. Wait a second. This is Omar. So Omar's work is a typical shot that you're going to be delivering to the developers. Definitely, it's a little bit grim. So since we are working with so much gray color, we should emphasize our plants to be a little bit happier. Right now, the saturation is fine, but the brightness could be a little bit higher. We should actually take this to Photoshop to talk about it for a second or two. Okay. Oh, by the way, who would have guessed? Next webinar next week is going to be Beginners Modeling Gingerbread House, the one that you've seen on our stream right now, or something similar that we're going to be playing around with. So now, this is a very cool shot because it has a lot of potential, but we're emphasizing the shadows too much. So the easiest way to fix it would be to either go to camera raw filter, or we can actually go to image adjustments and go to highlights and shadows. So here you can see that automatically it's going to just try its best to butcher a little bit of their shadows. So we're going to just go ahead and take away some highlights. Then we're going to lower the amount, and you can see that this area looks so much better. The trees look better. I know it's definitely going to require us to tone this down a little bit more, but just by changing a few small elements and making sure that our sky is not darker than our elevations, you can really emphasize this much more. So mid-tone goes down, actually like this, and now black and white clipping. This is a very powerful but very strong, let's say, tool. So maybe white is going to show us that better. So you can see that we can burn out some of the colors, so we can get some of the detail back into our shot. Also, if we go for a black color, it's basically going to do the same. So your shot is going to be more dramatic. So again, it's not that you have to follow this, because there's still a little bit of tone mapping to be done, especially color-wise, because your greens are cool, but now let's make them nice and juicy. So saturation kicks in, and we've got nice juicy colors going on in our shot. Yellow goes up, and now you can definitely feel that this shot is a happy picture, no longer sad the way it was earlier. I would definitely not recommend you to focus on photoshopping it, because it's going to be the least optimal way of working. I would probably go for that effect, but more from your 3ds Max, to make sure that all the colors are going to actually match. We can see that there's a nice you did something nice around here. So you've added some grass, and then you jump into your background image. That's a cool thing to do. Although the background image should be slightly higher, so that the horizon line is covered, because right now it's not exactly in the great position. It is close enough to really be realistic, but since we have such dense and strong colors here, why not try to do it also there? But then when we look at the background, those are the colors we're going for, and this is what you should be also thinking about. So please make sure to consider that for your next image. Now we're going to just move on and see what else we have in our possession. So this is another image, similar style, Addy. So this time it's an image created by Addy. So what we can see here is that this style is definitely taking over right now. But this is a typical scenario where the image itself looks good, but you do not control the contrast and lighting yet. So you definitely have to take this into Photoshop and play with it for a few seconds. So definitely a good image to have in your portfolio. It's easy to do, and it's something that I would recommend you to test out. I mean, all of you should try out. Again, we don't even have to go to the advanced options. So show more options, no. We're just going to go for amount, and we're just going to lower this and go for a little bit more highlights. So first of all, you can see that now, again, we're getting to the point where this is a happy picture. We don't want grim pictures. If we do, we're going to add a lot more contrast, because if your image is supposed to be contrasting, go for it. Go for the contrast, but do not oversaturate your image. Also, if you're going to go for too much contrast, you're going to burn out some of the elements. So it's best to add the contrast by using curves and not making this too obvious, because if we're going to have a nice snake around here, you can see that the contrast is really nicely highlighting the brightest elements, and we can lower this to clamp it a little bit, and we can also emphasize the lower spectrum, which is going to be also nice. So definitely something to consider. Just a little bit of contrast is something I would be recommending. Very nice work and no major problems, although reflections on the TV are never this flat, so please make sure to add a little bit of that. Can you do the a tutorial about mosque modeling, please? Send us a few nice examples to our email and we might be able to grab one or two. This is a cool idea because there's a lot of very good looking mosques, and it wouldn't hurt to give you some ideas on how to build arches, how to add nice mandalas, how to add all of those cool shapes that are always part of those buildings. So yeah, send me some nice ideas and we might go over it. So Fahad, hello, nice to have you. Okay, so love your work, Mister. Regards from Gdańsk. What? Nice. I used to live in Gdańsk, actually in Gdynia, but nice to have you. Trójmiasto. Okay, let's go ahead and continue. This another image, very typical delivery by Razwan. It's a building, so we're not going to get into all the details about the architecture because obviously it's not something we're here to judge. But what I can judge definitely is the texture usage, and all of your textures are stretched out. It really stands out that this texture is just wrongly placed. Then the mapping on the doors, this one is a downloaded object for sure, while this one was created by you. How can I tell? This one has a global UVW mapping, and you just said, yeah, let's go. So then you've got the background issue. Again, it's your horizon line that doesn't have any depth. In your case, you should always try to add some kind of fill up until a point slightly above the horizon. That way, your image is going to be more believable. It doesn't have to be a black hole behind your building. It's actually not supposed to be. But adding some kind of depth, making sure that you don't have the endless void there is going to be the right way to go about it. Wait a second. Wait. Next, we've got mapping on the top, also a little bit lacking, but overall, it's the reflections on your building. They just don't work. So please make sure to add more interesting reflections, and also one window compared to another is never going to have exactly the same angle and shape. Please make sure to add that detail by adding a little bit of noise to your elements. Pedestrians would find it difficult to walk at that pavement. Probably, but please consider that this is a one-point perspective shot, and somebody is just being a very big, well, yeah, probably a lot of problems. A lot of problems, yes. And also cars. Yeah, there's a lot of problems with this design. So, yes. Maybe this is one of those houses where you go in and just go around it. No. Honestly, good catch. Good catch, Prophet. Hello to you too, Pablo. Nice to have you. Argentina is a very nice place, so I wish to visit it at some point. If you import HDRI used with Corona Bitmap, there is an option to change RGB ACS. What is the difference if I use that? So let's explore it. So what you're talking about is importing your HDRI, and you're talking about the color space, right? So let's take some kind of HDRI. So I'm going to use one from HDRI Even. So please make sure to visit their website. They upload a lot of amazing images, so you might want to also use those, because why not? So let's see. So what you're talking about is that we've got parameters. So here we've got color space. Color space means that depending on the quality of the image and the type of filtering you want to add, you're either going to use linear RGB or you're going to use the ACS-CG. So this ACS-CG is the current norm, and this is something that we will be using a lot when doing our 3D. Allow me to just quickly show you the why HDRIs are important for us. So HDRIs are 32-bit images. What does it mean to have 32 bits in your image? Well, most importantly, if it's an actual 32-bit image, it's not only going to have RGB values in decimals, so it's going to have a higher depth of image perception. So we're not going to be using a few million colors, but gajillion billions. So that's a scientific fact. But if we also think about it in layman's terms, typically you have 255, 255, 255 RGB, and you've got a lot of combinations out of that. But here we've got 0. and 10,000. So we've got 10,000 options for each color. It's a lot, and definitely way more options. But this is not all, because also what is super cool is that our light also has -3 up to +3 exposure. So it's not going to be a flat image. So allow me to demonstrate. If I'm going to take something like exposure and lower the exposure, the last thing that's going to be hidden is the sun, because sun is producing the light for our image. But if I'm going to do exactly the same thing with a linear image, so in this case, it's going to be an image that we're going to set the RGB tone to 8-bit. So don't merge. Now, if I'm going to use exactly the same thing, the depth is gone and we're clamping the brightness. So ACSOT is a newer way of handling your overburned areas. So it's actually recommended to use either linear, so you add the ACSOT in your tone mapping, or you can add it to your HDRI, and it's going to also give you good results, not overburning the background. That's what it's going to help you with. So I'm always on the look for the new HDRIs into my collection. So you definitely want to visit that website. The owner of the house is a government official. So if it's a government official, that's going to be even more interesting. It's not your work, right? Okay, hello from Pakistan, Hamza, nice to have you. Let's continue going through our shots. So this one is actually a very simple shot that this is something that all of you are going to be delivering to your clients when you will start working with some kind of architectural companies. So this is not supposed to be the biggest and the juiciest shot ever. Also, what's going to be very cool about this is an image created by the same person. Nope, it's not. And so remember that for a second I thought this is the same person because they're using the same prompts. But okay, I must be honest, this is weird to place this kind of object on a table without any detail whatsoever, because that would not only damage the wood, but also it wouldn't be that elegant. So this is a typical work you're going to be doing for architects, and this is a per shot basis, probably on per interior basis. So you're going to be pricing this per space, not per image quantity. So what we're really showing here is the possible design. It's a very nice image, definitely worth a shout out. So Stefan, congratulations. But we have a few mistakes. First of all, it's this image. Not bad, but it's floating. This one is also floating in the air. It's not touching the wall. And the biggest mistake I noticed in this image, and I just had to add it in, is just your TV is literally facing the wall. Nobody is going to be able to watch it, and that really stands out as a problem. Then it's the pillow. They just don't match the elements. If we would take a few seconds and actually place those and or just delete them because those are cluttering the scene, not adding any kind of extra detail, it would be much better. Then we've got the usual suspect of burned out elements, and this only means that you don't know how to balance out the background versus your foreground. So in this case, you have to start using direct visibility overrides in order to take care or tackle the issue that once you add a little bit of exposure inside to show us how the inside actually looks like, so we don't burn out all the windows. So this is a very common problem. We go over this during our training, so if you would like to join our training at some point, make sure to do so. Okay, now this is an image that I just needed to add, and thank you very much, Stefan, for adding it, because this was based on one of the webinars we created on our YouTube channel. It's still lacking a few polishing finishes, but I must say that the building itself looks super cool. So congratulations to you, and thank you for following us that closely. Now let's continue. This is another work by also Stefan. So this is a more typical work that a lot of developers, development companies are going to want you to, let's say, create. Lighting wise, it's perfect, but it's clearly unfinished. Some elements are missing, some elements are floating, there's no textures, texture repetition. So this is a draft. And also there's a lot of AI denoising visible all over the place. So it's just that I'm not going to be judging it. It's not a finished work. So let's just continue. Now, that is something that you can call professional. Not only we've got very nice depth of field, a little bit too excessive, but it's there and it's cool. It would be perfect if it would be a bit more of a close-up where we are trying to zoom in on something like this. And then if we zoom in, the problem begins, because there are a few elements that you have forgotten to fix their smoothing groups, and that shows in those areas. Then we've got a lot of very cool detail all over the place, and especially the wall. But please make sure to rescale this bump because it's just too excessive. It looks like 80s house, and this probably is not it. Perfect ceiling, really lovely, but for this wideness of a shot and this kind of depth of field, it makes it a little bit unrealistic. There are no lenses like that. I strongly recommend you to try to work with educate yourself a little bit more on the rules of photography to make sure to create a little bit more logical shots. Also, I don't know who's the giant here again, but placing that handle right there is going to be super inconvenient. Okay, I'm really bad at stick figures now. So this is probably one of those logical problems. You have to just think about this. Or maybe this is to prevent the kid from opening the window, which would be quite a cool idea. This is a very cool shot. Definitely your lens needs a little bit of correction because it's impossible to have this kind of blur and also sharpness at the same time. You have to control it a little bit more. Go more subtle, and that's going to be perfect. Burned out background, that's a very common reoccurrence. A little bit more blue and glare, but it's a high quality image, so congratulations to you, Mohammed, and let's continue through our folder. So next we've got hike. This is a living room, and honestly I have nothing on it. It's lacking reflection on the TV, but it's just high quality, something that you deliver to your client, and you shouldn't be really worried about it. You can always find a few flaws here and there to just perfect some elements, but honestly, this is job done. This is something you can deliver, so congratulations. This is something that everybody should be thinking about. Probably bit different mapping on the curtain would be appreciated, but I've got nothing. And this beautiful display of alcoholism of the homeowner is just perfect. So very good professional work, definitely professional. So hike, congratulations. Now let's see it. Another super professional work. This one is by Sahak. First of all, The detail you've added is out of this world. This is something you always want to think about. Not only we've got scatters of different types, different variety of plants, we also have the same plant in different forms. Then we've got some random bushes here and there that just doesn't belong, but at the same time they belong very well because that's nature. Rocks, pebbles, all that good stuff. It's just perfect. The rocks seem to be a bit clean, but who cares? The only problem I really found in your image is the repetition, or let's say this kind of texture that reforms all the time. Definitely randomization of the texture or using a little bit higher quality resolution object would be super appreciated. Also, your sky is darker. I mean, the clouds are darker than the facade's color. So this is something you have to work on a little bit more because that's just a little bit, well, not looking as attractive as it should. Also, super cool detail. It's probably Corona Decal or some kind of distance mapping. Super amazing work here. I absolutely love the way you've added this detail. Wet elements, a bit of water pouring onto those elements, just perfect. Probably you have to work just a teeny bit more on the mapping, and once you set up your displacement, try to top up the pixel density of displacement. If you are afraid that it's going to eat too much of your RAM, do it for objects that are closer to your camera. For example, by adding your displacement only to an object. So let's go for Corona displacement modifier. And here you can go for custom, enable override, and we can override the displacement that this object would have. So it's going to be easier to add emphasis on those objects that do require a bit higher quality. So this is a cool work. Definitely one of those, well, high quality professional images. But then we've got the water. Water cannot be, let's say, frozen the way it is. Because you would actually get some kind of motion blur on it. So adding a bit of motion blur would be a super cool idea in here. I know that you can have a super fast shutter that's going to capture it, but it's just not going to look as good as it would be if you would actually add a little bit of motion blur. So going for motion blur in those cases is probably going to be not that easy, especially that it's pouring seemingly out of nothing. So this is another thing I would recommend you to think about. But having this water, just new layer, and I know it's not going to look that good, at least not as good as it would be looking if we would render this out actually. So motion blur, and let's motion this water so it's going to be going up and down, so it instantly looks more natural. The bottom needs a little bit better blurring, but the more we add this, the better the water looks like. And then we can just try to fix it a little bit. But this waterfall is 10 times more interesting than water just frozen in action, because that's not how water would look like. And this also opens up a few more possibilities, because now we can add a bit of dodge tool and it's actually going to be super nice and shiny. And that's exactly what I would be recommending you to think about for the next shot. So motion blur definitely is going to help you. Now, what else do we have? We've got this image created by Rana. So Rana has a very big tendency for oversaturation. This is the same person that created this bedroom, and you can definitely see that we've got quite a lot of very nice themes. So what's going to be a problem in your case, what's going to be a problem in here is that you're using a texture that is behind the building and it's just a flat plane, but it's not even a flat plane, it's image set to screen, and that is why we've got so much repetition that doesn't look good. Then the usual oversaturation, and this is the full image that we talked about, another image, and then more of that. So definitely that's something to think about. Please use the same tips from the last from your previous image, and let's move on. Okay, that's so cool. So for this is a proper usage of not only motion blur but also depth of field. You can see that we've got nicely blurred out and moving elements. So we kind of could do a little bit better job on the object itself, but this really tells a story. We can see that the image has a lot of cool elements in here. So Stefano, you absolutely rock, and the image has everything we need. Well, person with their child going back to their absolute monster of a mansion. So this is a very cool thing. Also, a lot of good trees, nice colors, perfect composition, very nice composition thanks to the trees, because we got two margins that close our image. It's just like we're looking at some kind of framed picture. It's a perfect shot. Definitely things to consider would be adding a little bit more variety with your plants. Some of them seem to be so similar that we're getting into a place where we kind of get a lot of noise. But I also have to appreciate that this is how grass looks like. But if it's grass, why is some of it going this way and then that way? It's just that you've got the 360 rotation, and that is why it looks just fuzzy. And some of it is just going to be X, 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 X. So probably a bit more variety and a few more plants, bit lower exposure on the colors. But please notice that we also have a cool thing going on here. So this means that we were displacing, cutting, or just detaching this part to just create this small slope. This is a very cool thing to do. Right now, what we do is we use the areas in our scatters, so that gives us a little bit better idea and better looks, but definitely something to think about. Now, the last image that I've prepared for you today, because we are running out of time. So this is a typical cool image that you will be delivering to your clients. But the one thing that you have to work on a little bit more is the color composing, because every color is all over the place. It tries to outshine every other element and every other aspect of your shot. First of all, those lights are trying to focus so much of our attention that those are just annoying, and each and every light is trying to be the most important light in your shot. Try to decide what lights or what part of your lighting is important. Probably something around the building. So the rest shouldn't be as in your face. So that would really emphasize the building. And since we're emphasizing the building and the composition is clearly supposed to be dynamic, try to add the same dynamism at the bottom. So we would probably expect a little bit something that's going to be closing this gap here and this gap here. So that would force the viewer to look at your image in a little bit spectrum. Next, we've got the birds. This is a super common mistake, or let's say this is just a tradition. Everybody who does their first exterior ever, they will add the ducks or some kind of birdies. And that's not a problem, really. It's just that it's a tradition. Everybody does this, and so did I. I even tried balloons at some point. But right now, you're oversaturating your lights. So if we would try to desaturate some of the lights, especially the reds, so let's go for reds, desaturate them slightly. They're no longer as in your face. Then we can go for all the rest of the lights and try to do the same. But what I would be doing if I were you, since we're all over the town, we're super modern with this classical building and whatnot, what you want to do is add a small gradient behind your building that's going to be just simply adding a bit of oomph to your shot. So what is that? We're going to just add a simple gradient that's going to be reversed in my case. So white-ish, and I want to actually set the second color to black. So, okay, now we're going to, okay, we're almost there, but I need to change the color gradient. Thank you. Now, this is going to neatly emphasize the shot. I know it's not really going to be perfect at the moment, but we're going to just move the gradient slightly. Okay, move the gradient. Perfect. So now we place it right behind our most important element of the shot, and then we set this to either overlay or we set it to screen. So this way, our building is super emphasized compared to all the rest. We kind of need to balance out the amount of gradient we're going to be adding, but thanks to this, we can also introduce a vignette into our shot, which is going to just emphasize the same effect a little bit more. So camera roll filter, let's try to do it this way. And then we're going to go for effects and try to go for a color, lighting, where is it? Effects, yes. So we want to go for a vignette, lower it, and look at that. No longer the lights are so annoying. Our building is emphasized. I would still have to reconsider moving the camera slightly to add a bit different proportions, because this is what I would be going for. We can try to AI generate the rest, but this would also require us to build something. So the best idea is to add a nice tree around here, or a shrub that's going to just cover part of your image. So that's going to be definitely something to think about. And overall, oversaturation, over contrasting is not going to do you any favors, because all the rest of our image compared to the main element are not important. So if we just wash out all the rest, it's just not going to have a lot of impact. So we don't need the background. We just need our dreamy, beautiful building to be in the center of our shot. We want to focus on it. And I'm assuming that this is also something we're visualizing, but if it's not, I would definitely change the crop even further, so it's not even going to be allowing us to see anything else. But I would definitely give the building a little bit of braving area so we can really appreciate it and not obscure its view with some kind of car. So this was a very cool image, and honestly, I am super grateful to all of you that uploaded something. Some of the images that we've shown, some of the images yet that you've uploaded didn't make it to our video, because today we're not going to be able to go through all hundreds of images that we got, but I promise you we're going to try to use as many as we can always. So keep them coming, because next month we're going to do another portfolio. Hope that you learned something, guys. Make sure to visit our website, that's VizAcademy Co. UK, if you want to learn a little bit more about how we operate and what VizAcademy really is. So VizAcademy is an online school that will teach you how to create beautiful renders in less than 7 weeks. You can see our students work on both our Instagram, Facebook, and mostly on our Instagram, but also sometimes we talk about our students' work during our YouTube webinars. So our students, as you can see, are basically flawless, and well, getting images like this for a review would be a huge treat. So definitely, if you want to top up your game, be a little bit better, create more professional shots, please make sure to visit our website, that's VizAcademy Co. UK. Sign up for our training right now. We're running out of spots for our 2024 batch, so if you want to join it, please make sure to grab it right now. Also, this could be a very cool gift for your significant other or your friend that always wanted to create some visuals, or treat yourself because well, this opportunity is going to be something fantastic. Also, right now we're trying to create some kind of bigger community. That's why I would really love to see you do some kind of regular sharing with your friends, also liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It greatly helps, and leave a comment once our webinar is done. I will really appreciate it, because we're doing it for you, but we also want to reach more of you. The more, the merrier. Okay, let's try to answer your last questions, and then I have to go. Okay, I'm never sure the best approach to grass. I find V-Ray grass is very processor intensive. Yes, and when it comes to chaos scatter, you want to probably use a lot of optimization both on your objects, and try to make the grass intensity a little bit lower further away from your camera. Looks more like illustration than a render. maybe that tall building behind looks better than the one we're looking at. That's a little bit mean of you, fart and run. Okay, I have a reset X form. Also, my swift profile is not properly snapping to the path. I'm guessing it's a tall building to the image. I like the perspective though. With the light behind, it looks more like a Christmas card. Well, if the rest of the lights would be first of all, we're in the we're in a scenario where we're dealing with a city, the city at night. And this certainly is a living building that's more of a club-ish vibe in it. So for that reason, probably adding the Christmas card vibe at to some degree is going to be okay. I mean, the white element is definitely not something I would be going for, but the gradient on the sky should always be visible. Not maybe not at this level or not at this intensity, because we're trying to emphasize the techniques that would make your images a little bit more interesting. But at the same time, please consider that a lot of times we're going to have to balance out the effect to really appreciate it, and it's not always going to be just one-click solution to make something look perfect. Okay, let's continue. It's 9:13 here. GG, thank you for your advices. Man, I wish I could sign up for the course. You can. Hi mom. Thank you. Can you do a tutorial on mosque modeling? I just said that I can, and we're going to be able to do that. So once again, guys, this is it for today. Highly appreciate all of you for coming and spending this time with me. It was a blast, especially for me, obviously. Next week, we're going to be doing this gingerbread house or a similar one. So if you want to join us, make sure to join our next webinar. The link to our to that event is going to be posted in 24 hours. So I'm hoping that we're going to see you. This is it for today. Hope you learned something, and see you next time. Bye bye.